At that time, Prabhupada lived in a grass hut. There was no other place to live in. I remember Prabhupada one time was sitting in the grass hut and he just said, this grass hut is an abode of goodness. And this is all you need for spiritual life, live in a grass hut and live by the side of the holy river, chant Hare Krishna. But if we do this, people won't come here. So we have to build the big buildings with concrete and steel and bricks. Those buildings are in the mode of passion. But for preaching, we can build those buildings. But for our own selves, this should be enough.
Before the festival, I had approached Srila Prabhupada on the balcony in Calcutta and said, Srila Prabhupada, I've been trying to understand what you want of us, what your desire is. I could see that Srila Prabhupada was really listening and taking every word into his heart. And then I said, two things seem to please you the most. Distributing your books and building the big temple in Mayapur. And Srila Prabhupada's eyes opened wide, his face lit up, he smiled and he glanced at me and he said, yes, you have understood. And then he said, if you build this temple in Mayapur, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur will personally come and take you all back to Godhead.
Bhavananda Prabhu said, Srila Prabhupada, we're sitting in the middle of these rice fields. I'm from New York. He says, Srabi, the architect, is from Amsterdam. You know, we're all from cities. We're all from big cities. And we're sitting in the middle of these rice fields, and you're asking us to build a big temple in the city. How we can do this, Prabhupada? And he said, Prabhupada, where will all the money come from? And Prabhupada said, Bhavananda is always thinking, where will money come from? He said, actually, here you have Radha Madhava. He said, Madhava means the husband of goddess of fortune. Simply serve Madhava nicely and everything will come. You don't have to worry about money. Well, Prabhupada, we don't know where to start even. They had the design for the Lotus building and you know, where to put it. We're really bewildered, standing in the middle of rice fields. You know, Prabhupada, he didn't procrastinate, as we say. So Prabhupada said, come with me. We had 3 acres of land at that time, 1 strip of land from the road. So Prabhupada, he put a clod of earth down, then he just paced so far down, then he put another clod of earth, then he just turned and he paced the other way, put another clod of earth, paced up the other end. So he put 4 clods of earth and he said, build it here. That was it.
This is Prabhupada establishing the Anantasesha in 1972. He invited all of his god brothers to come. And many god brothers had already left, so there were disciples of god brothers, his spiritual nephews. So he invited them all to come. And then he spoke to them that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur wanted us to all work together. So why don't we all combine and work together? Now I have temples around the world, and I can give you some devotees from foreign countries to help the preaching. We should all work together. But they didn't accept. Didn't really say anything.
He had told us to dig a pit, and we dug a pit about 15 feet deep and probably around 6 to 8 feet wide with a bamboo ladder going down inside. He said he was going to set the cornerstone. We had no idea what setting a cornerstone was going to be like. But apparently his friend and godbrother Puri Maharaj had come bringing a little solid 24-karat gold Anantasesha. It was about 1.5 inches high. So Prabhupada was going down in the pit, and Ashoka Amrita was holding the ladder. And then somebody came up, Prabhupada wants you. What? He wants you to go down in the pit. Why he wants you to go down in the pit? And I saw Prabhupada is walking down the ladder, and I came over, and I went down in the pit with Srila Prabhupada. And to me, it was symbolic enough. I'm in a pit with a ladder and Prabhupada, what more do I want? We gather an accumulation of bricks, and then a bucket comes down with mortar and a trowel. So I didn't know what to do. And Prabhupada said, just gestured at us. We are building a temple here, he said like that. So I pick up a brick and I butter it with mortar and I set it down, and then I put another one and I start to set it just very nicely like a chimney or something of that sort. Prabhupada said, no, not like that. And I said, how? He said, every which way. When he said every which way, he meant randomly. And then I started building, and I built this thing, and there was a gap in the middle, and the Srila Prabhupada came and placed the Ananta Sesh and said, put more. After I'd pretty well hidden the deity with bricks, he told me to go up, and the others came down.
So he went down, you see that ladder, bamboo tied together with pieces of string. He goes down and he comes up, and everybody's kind of, his all godbrothers are there, we're all there. And he said, now sees Brahmananda, Gargamuni, Devananda, Tamal Krishna's there. And so everybody kind of were thinking, who's going to speak? Who's going to speak? I remember I was also thinking that way. And then he says, Malvaji, you speak. And I mean, everybody was floored. I was floored. So what can I say? And I'm just looking around. Here's all these learned Vaishnavas, certainly more learned than I'd ever be. I just stood up and spoke about Srila Prabhupada. I remember I was crying a little bit. And then afterwards, I remember Gargamuni came up to me and he said, that was very nice. And I always appreciated that, I was just reflecting on Prabhupada's expertness in putting us forward and in utilizing us for the benefit of his mission. And knowing each one of our particular ability and our limitations, and even using our limitations to the best advantage. Because in this situation, I was not, as I mentioned, I was not a pundit. I don't know Sanskrit verses. I wasn't fully learned in the Bhagavatam, but I had no hesitation about speaking on the glories of Srila Prabhupada. And it was actually the right thing to do at that time.
While we were at Mayapur, one young man named Bob Cohen came to our camp. And we were really surprised because we didn't get visitors just coming like that. And Bob Cohen was very intelligent and sober. He was a Peace Corps worker in India. So he came to meet Srila Prabhupada. He had attended our Pandal program at Deshapriya Park in South Calcutta. And he began to ask Srila Prabhupada very intelligent questions. And Srila Prabhupada gave very elaborate answers. And it became a regular routine that Bob would come and ask questions to Srila Prabhupada. And knowing that there was going to be an important discussion, I would ask Srila Prabhupada, should I call the others? And he would say yes.
My experiences with Prabhupada, of course, occurred in the Bhajan Kutir, where devotees wanted to know if I had any questions, which I certainly did. So I got to sit in there, I think, for several hours a day over probably a 4-day period, and discuss with Prabhupada my philosophical issues. I didn't really know a whole lot about what was going on in terms of parampara and how things work. I knew a little, but I just appreciated the qualities of Prabhupada. He made me feel very comfortable. His humor was very disarming. And Prabhupada was on a platform, so I was on the floor. So I'd always be looking at Prabhupada's feet, and somehow that gave me some blessing. One of the most dramatic moments for me personally is when I realized it's time for me to leave Mayapur. Because the night before, on Gaur Purnima night, Jamuna had come to me with tears in her eyes. And I remember the moon reflecting in her eyes, and she had tears and said, "You are so fortunate. Prabhupada spending so much time with you." She said it with such conviction that I was completely overwhelmed. And I realized that I might have to surrender. So I went behind the temple, behind the pandal, and just collapsed in the rice paddies and started crying. I said, I can't give everything up. So the next morning, Prabhupada called for me again, asked if I had more questions. I said, thank you very much for what you've done, but I have to leave now. I have to get back to my teaching, which Peace Corps had no idea where I was or what I did, so I could go back or not go back. And Prabhupada said, don't talk L-E-A-V-E. He spelled it out. Talk L-I-V-E. Don't talk leave, talk live. So I said to Prabhupada, so you want me to stay longer? He goes, yes. I said, well, if you tell me to, I will. And then he said to me, good boy, the same way you would say it to your pet. So at that time, in my heart, I felt I had become Prabhupada's pet, not realizing that I, in essence, had accepted him as my guru, though. When I think back at it, after that time, I was sold out to Prabhupada. A minor incident, but for me, it was very major. And Prabhupada timed it just perfectly well to capture me.